my God. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think back. But yeah, you got the embodiment, the visceral experience of what life coaches can tell you intellectual, conceptual ideas of where we're going, of what we're going for, give you kind of heady, processes or mind maps. Like, I'm a life coach, I do lots of this kind of stuff. But the clown drops us into the body, into the visceral experience of what it is to be in connection, what it is to be up there with nothing, what it is to go into our anxiety and our panic and find laughter and joy in those places. And to connect with an audience and to be vulnerable, but not think about it, just be with it and reap the rewards of what that is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marvins World podcast, a podcast where we speak to magnificent, scintillating, and transcendent human beings who will basically teach us, help people like you and me make what we love a full-time job. If you like the podcast, please give us a review on iTunes, share it with your friends, and subscribe. If you don't like it, don't worry, don't tell anyone. Today we have a magnificent guest. She is a renowned clown teacher. She is a clown artist who's toured all over the world. And she is also an author who has a book coming out very soon. And
not so soon.
But what we're here to do today is we're going to find out that clowning is more than what you see in The Simpsons on Krusty the Clown. We have the amazing Zuma Puma.
Hello. What an intro. Yeah, clowning is definitely more than Krusty the Clown. That is more than it as well.
There's so many things. I remember, what's it called, Dan Lees had an interview on the BBC on clowning, and one of the guys kept on trying to push him towards saying that clowning is a lot like that, but he answered it pretty well.
Yeah, Dan Lees is a really good friend of mine. He also directed the show, my show that I toured around the world. And yeah, I mean, anyone who teaches clown, anyone who lives and breathes the world of clown will avoid comparing it to Krusty the Clown or the kind of mainstream ideals of clown. Because yeah, for a lot of us, it's like it's quite it's a way of being, it's a philosophy, it's a very intricate art form, pretty complex.
And it's very, very one of the most sort of human connection based performances. Like in stand-up you have a script, but in clown it's there's more of a connection, more so than perhaps stand-up, because stand-ups, they have a script and they hide away from the audience in a way.
Yeah. So in clown there's a lot of space. I like to call it liminal space, free space. I teach about this in my courses. Which is getting used to moments where we're just in connection with our audience. We take a breath from the script, maybe because the audience want us to be guided more towards a joke with them than be attached to the idea to impress. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's... Well, one of the funny things that I found was when I told someone that I was going to Goliath and I was doing the clowning school, they see it as that, so they laugh straight away. Oh, you're being like give us a red nose sort of thing and dance around. But they didn't see that, clowning's taught many of the best performers out there, like Sacha Baron Cohen, Emma Thompson, Helen Bolton Carter, and Jeffrey Rush from Pirates of the Caribbean. Many successful in whatever field have done clowning.
Yeah. So did you train with Goliath?
Yes, I did, until the pandemic sent me back here. So I was about to do the clowning module in March, and like all these other modules, but I got in the second week of Buffon, and then I came back here.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a shame. Yeah, well, for me, clowning, I wouldn't say Goliath introduced me to clown, but he was the first teacher I ever had in the way of clown. Yeah, I first came across clown visiting the Avignon Fringe Festival when I was 15, and it blew my mind that it was even an option in life. I saw a couple clown shows, and I couldn't believe that this was like an art form, that this was a direction people took in the way of performance careers. And so I went to Goliath when I was about 18. Yeah, and really changed my life. I got obsessed with clown because I was so bad at it. Like anybody who goes to Goliath, you're just terrible at anything. For most of the time, maybe 1 or 2 days you have some breakthroughs, maybe a week. But yeah, it's one of the most challenging experiences I've ever had, and definitely the one that changed the course of my life forever.
So the question is, how would you describe the Goliath experience? And one of the things I want to ask you specifically is, how does doing it for 2 years differ to doing it for 1 year? And also, how would you isolate the two differences between the misconception of clowning and what clowning actually is?
Wow, those are 3 very different big questions. Firstly, the Goliath experience. Yeah, it was challenging. It was life-changing. It was life-affirming. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. Yeah, I recommend it for people with hard shells, but for quite sensitive beings. I think there are lots of clown teachers who are brilliant and who are incredible facilitators and don't destroy your ego or self-worth. I wouldn't say that Goliath destroyed my self-worth, but it took me a while to feel courageous enough to get on the stage, because the risk is so big at Goliath. The risk to get up and to perform. And actually, when you get up in front of a live audience, a real audience, it's nowhere near as terrifying. I think that Sacha Baron Cohen actually writes about this in his preface in Philippe's book, but about how much easier it is to perform for a live audience or for a camera than it was to get up in that class, and that was one of the most challenging experiences he ever had. And I would agree, and just like any life-changing course, it's going to be challenging. If you're not meeting a challenge or a tension, then there's no space for transformation, for you to overcome something. It's like any story of like the hero's quest, for instance. You have to meet the demons. You kind of got to you've got to get to the gateway and cross a threshold in order to really bask in the celebration of what it is to overcome something challenging. I would say that it was life-changing in the way of like it has built the core philosophies that I stand by today in how I work and play with clown and teach clown, that pleasure is forefront, that connection to your audience is key, that listening to your audience, that sensitivity to your audience, that willingness to play with the flop, to befriend the flop, is an opportunity we could bring the audience closer to us. And yeah, there's a lot of things, but mostly with Goli, I learned about pleasure. I learned about, yeah, I just learned how important it is to play, to follow the game, to find a game, and then to continue unraveling the game and following the pleasure and just going wherever the pleasure takes you. And I think this is the kind of key study that I went on to live my life with. And what I teach now, like I teach clown as a way of life. My courses are focused around well-being and around the comedy of you. And although I do work with professional actors sometimes, I work with anybody. You know, my focus is on life, is on how the philosophies and the visceral experience of clown can help us in our day-to-day life achieve like better connection, listening to, you know, to enhance relationships, to follow our pleasure in life, to stay optimistic when everything falls to shit, and to go, that didn't work, but this will. And I think that it was Golier introducing these kind of core philosophies around following the pleasure that I kind of took and ran with and then adopted into life in the way of just traveling and seeing where, you know, where did my pleasure take me? Where did my joy take me? And then how was my connection? Who were the people I was meeting? And then what opportunities, what wild mystery lay before me with each interaction.
So there's two questions.
Yeah, I answered one question. I know that was a long answer. Did you want me to, or do you have a different ones to go off?
Oh, now I've got different ones to go off.
Great, go off.
Because now I want to see is, so two questions now are like, how does doing the full 2-year thing differ to the 1 year? Mm-hmm. And how, because you mentioned, yeah, could you specify how it changes?
I didn't actually complete the whole 2 years because there were some modules I didn't do because I got work elsewhere. So I had a professional job, so I decided to take a break and thought I would go back. And then I didn't. But then at that point, I had discovered some other kind of clown gurus in the world, major clown teachers. And I thought I could go back to Golier and finish my 2 years, or I can continue my studies with the, you know, follow the pleasure to the next one. And so I continued. I did a year-long course with Francine Cote in Montreal, and I went to Vermont and I apprenticed Bread and Puppet, which is more kind of Brechtian, kind of raw clown, and with Peter Schumann, and I continued just training with all sorts of people all over the world, and eventually coming to London and collaborating with a bunch of Golier people. We started a clown camp, kind of clown school, where we met every Monday for 5 hours every week for about 5 years, and every couple months we invited in a different teacher to work with, so that we got a really eclectic and varied approach to clown, and studied a lot of different philosophies and styles and aesthetics of clown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how, it's something that I would really like to look at, because during the school, it's interesting looking at different people, and like, because I really like to analyze, because I will go back to at some point, but probably not this year. But I want to look at what benefits doing the full thing brings. Like specifically, as you said, like with the course itself, it's not suited for everyone, and I want to see whether it's needed or not. Because if you're just doing things for the sake of doing it, there's no point. You have to see, how is it going to help me? Like, how is it going to develop you, or how is it, what can it add to you?
I don't know. To be honest, I know people. I don't think Sacha Baron Cohen didn't complete the 2 years.
Ah,
Helena Bonham Carter, I don't think completed her 2 years either. There, I don't think it's necessarily there's like some prize at the end of the 2 years that suddenly you're a brilliant clown because you crossed
yeah,
that mark. I think the teachings of Gaulier, once you've been there, I think 3 months is the kind of minimum amount to get to soak up his pedagogy and the way that he works, and for him to kind of get into your brain, into your skull. And I think after that point, it's how do you take his philosophies and his work into your life? How do you apply that to the stage when you get back up into your stand-up and you're there with your audience? How are you applying all of the philosophies that he's taught you? And it's that's going to make the
difference.
So I think it's not like I think it's like with any course, right? It's like you do a course and it doesn't necessarily, it makes you a master.
No.
Whether you continue to do your 10,000 hours after that course and continue to adopt those philosophies and work and like deepen your practice, then I think that's when the light bulbs start really happening. Like for me, I was so young when I was at Gaulier. I even I did go back when I was 24, and that's when I did the next bit that I did. Yeah, and I think the ball didn't drop for me until I was about 25 or 26 when I was running the Lost Cabaret. And when I started the Lost Cabaret, that's when I started getting it. I started getting everything that he was teaching us, because I was up there and I was practicing and I was gigging, sometimes 4 times a week, and I was running a regular cabaret every Friday night with new audiences to play with, to try things out on. And I started to understand a lot of the things that he taught me. Yeah.
And so that people become educated on clowning, like, how does it differ to what people would say, like, who, I'm it, or like, I'm Krusty the Clown sort of thing? How can you sort of describe the key differences there? Because a lot of people still think that.
Yeah, of course. But just like anything, acting isn't just film acting. There's theater acting, there's immersive performance acting, there's like, it's same with clown. Clown is like an umbrella term for many different aesthetics and ways and forms of clown. And yeah, there's the reason why we identify it as Krusty the Clown or It are because those two are versions that have hit the mainstream. The mass majority of people have seen the It movie or have watched The Simpsons. So immediately that's going to put an image in their mind and go, that's the reference for clown. Just like maybe in the 1920s, the Barnes and Bailey circus in the US would be the kind of main reference for clown in the US today, would be circus gag, Barnes and Bailey kind of clown. Or yeah, if you've gone to a kid's birthday party and there was a clown there, you would then reference children's clown as the way, what clown is. But ultimately, yeah, there's a lot of different types and aesthetics and ways of clown. Also from country to country, it differs. Clown in Canada is different to clown in Europe. There's like a Canadian form of clown, which was brought about by Pachenko, who was actually one of Gaulier's students, but he devised and created his own way of arriving at clown in theater. It's a theater form of clown called Pachenko, or clown through mask. and it's a bit more philosophical or psychological in the way that you're working with uncovering kind of your multitude of inner personalities, and then your clown sits and plays between all of them, and the joke is you're laughing at you. It comes about through mask, and you start with like making masks, and then your clown comes from the mask, and it's a whole style in itself. And then there's just so many different types of clown, and where a clown, there's the fool or the jester or street performance clown, there's theater clown, there's comedy clown, and then, I'd say my friend Phil Burgers, or Dr. Brown, I feel like a couple years ago created a whole other subgenre of clown, alternative comedy clown, which you see at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival today, which I would say that Philippe Gaulier really harnesses and supports and feeds that kind of, the idiot. Yeah. Although maybe some would argue that Phil is more bouffant than he is clown. But then there's loads of debates even within the clown community of what clown is. And I think most of us can agree that clown is a state of play. It's a state of playing and being with your audience, connected to your audience. So there is no fourth wall. You're entirely playing with the audience, and you're playing with the idiot of you. You are the butt of the joke in a way. And it's an embodied expression as opposed to a witty expression. You're not trying to appear intelligent. Your intelligence is within your stupidity and how your audience connect and recognize themselves within you.
And then intelligence is like being very, as you say, connected to the audience. So like if you're interacting, you're doing a performance and you notice something that's quite funny and it would entertain the audience and show. Like I remember someone telling me that Virgo Von, he did this like 20 minutes trying to guess this man's name. And that's it's not supposed to work, but he recognized the situation and the scene and he knew that would work. So that's why he did it.
Right. He found the comedy was not it's not what he was doing, it was how he was doing it.
Yeah.
For instance, how, a couple years ago, actually, I went to a show with Dan Lees, and it was about a clown who had a problem with a chair. And I'm pretty sure he took a whole hour just to sit in the chair. And it was unbelievable because it was so so believable. This idiot who couldn't figure out how to sit in a chair. And it wasn't what he was doing. It wasn't the complexity of sitting in this chair. It was how he was doing it, how we believed that he was this, idiot who couldn't figure out the chair or the, like how to sit in it properly, how to, there were a couple other things that happened. It wasn't just the chair, but it was like how a clown can take 5 minutes just to raise an eyebrow, and it's one of the most amazing moments, or it's not what you do, it's how you do it with clown. So it's not like it's different. It differs from stand-up, because with stand-up it's what you say, right? We're laughing at the joke, we're laughing at what you say, the wit of what you're saying.
Mostly, yes.
Yeah? Or
you're mostly right, I'd say that.
Yeah?
That's like with a lot of stand-ups as a whole. Yeah, that's why a lot of, they say, really good stand-ups like Daniel Simonson and like Marco Leconte, they did a bit of clowning. And it helps because, as you said, with the connection to the audience. But most of the comedy I see is that it's just, as you say, the words. But, I mean, there are some comedians that it is they say with a comic, you're either a writer or you're a performer. So in the ones that I would say that are performer, and it's not really the material, like you say, like Patrice O'Neill, he didn't necessarily used to write his joke, or Bill Burr. It's a lot of what makes them funny is their persona or their clown, as you say, and how they
Yeah.
can, and then they develop it.
Well, like Dave Chappelle, right? Like he's lovable in the way that he delivers his jokes.
Yeah.
We're laughing with him, the ridiculous of him.
But yeah, it is more. So you are right, though. It's definitely more so what you say, because I see a lot of the times. I run a night in London where it's a comedy show, and like comedians do their set, but no one's laughing. They're not reacting what's there, and then they carry on just doing their set, and somehow it's going to get better. But you're not paying attention. You're not reading what's happening. You got to react what's there. If someone's heckling you or something, you got to know how to play with it and make it fun. It's a live performance. It's all about the audience and you and them having a good time. It's not about like anyone's ego. It's about having a good time and them having a good time. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah, that's why I think clown is having a resurgence today, because it feeds every other art form. It's like, a stand-up with some clown training. It's like that connection to the audience, the freedom, the willingness to be in that liminal space, in that space where, ooh, maybe we'll leave the joke for a second or what I was gonna say and play with this, the woman who brought her dog or for some reason, or the guy who came in late, or, the person who's checking their phone, how it's like playing with the moment of the risk of what could happen if, where everyone's kind of on the edge of their seat. And I think the clown teaches us so well to play with those moments, to play with the heckler, or the moments where nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that feeds well into acting too, and like any actor on a stage or even in the street, if they're a street performer.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I think in a lot of clown workshops, you kind of have everyone from all different backgrounds, whether they want to be a clown or not. You don't go to clown school just because you want to be a clown. You go to clown school because you want to be a better performer, or or a better person, maybe somebody who, you want to have an easier time connecting or relating to people.
Yeah. Now that brings me to an interesting point, because you said like clown helps with your mental state and like your connection with others, and I also saw that you do a bit of NLP. Like, how does, first of all, let's look at how, could you specify how it can help with relationships and things that you wouldn't think it would help with?
Oh yeah.
Life.
Yeah, well, so much about clown is connection and how you're relating to that audience then, right? We can't like attach ourselves to the audience that we had yesterday, the audience that we have tomorrow. Just like if you're sitting next to someone on the bus, it's like, how are you connecting with this person? What is unique about this relationship? How, if you're stuck at a dinner party with, an uncle who's extremely boring, how can you follow the pleasure, follow the joy in your conversation to feed the curiosity so that you can bring this person closer to you in relating to you, than being stuck in a boring conversation that you don't want to have. Where can you find like it's the same as if you're in front of an audience and they're not enjoying the set that you've got going. Are you really gonna stay attached to the set, to the jokes that aren't working? Yeah. Are you going to let go of them for a moment to connect with the audience, to bring them back in so that you can all have a better time? Because ultimately they're there because they want to be entertained. You're there because you want to entertain them. So it's the same in the way of, connecting or relating. And there's so much in clown around listening and listening well and sensing almost intuitively whether an audience is with you or not, whether they're loving you or not. And this is the same in a relationship, like you're with your partner and you can tell they're not interested in the conversation. You can tell when they're really with you, you can tell, ooh, something's not good, let's talk about this. Let's, find the joy. Yes, I think there's a lot of parallels in the way that we connect, in the way that we laugh at ourselves. And the whole thing around how most problems, like in NLP, we say this, that if in 5 years' time you don't remember this as a problem, it's not a problem,
Oh.
So if you think of any problem, any conflict that's happening in your life right now, and you go 5 years into the future, are you going to remember that problem? Probably not. If it's that the bus drove past you on the side of the road, or, and then the clown, I feel, plays with the joke of all of these human conflicts, these human experiences that are so relatable, and we blow them out of proportion and play with the absolute ridiculous that they could be. And we all laugh at the idiot, because we recognize ourselves in that. And so I think there's a lot in that way with clown of taking our lives just a little bit more lightly,
Yeah. Okay. So it's a bit like some of the benefits you get with improv. They say that if you want to be good at people, you do improv because it gets you sharper in listening and like how to respond off people's things. But clown is maybe less structured than that.
Yeah. I would say there's a lot of similarities with improv and how improv can enhance or improve your life. But clown focuses so much more on the connection to the audience than improv does. Improv, you've still got a little bit of trying to find the joke, trying to have one up, or to appear as intelligent or witty. There's a bit more, whereas, in clown, there's a lot more vulnerability. There's a lot more risk around just being really vulnerable. And I think this is kind of the key thing that clown can offer in the way of life. You have all of these researchers today, like Brené Brown, in the study of courage and vulnerability, and how her TED Talks are like transforming people's lives, and her books and studies around the power of vulnerability and how that can bring somebody closer to you, and it can also diffuse tension, befriend enemies. That there's a similar thing in the study of vulnerability with clown. The more we can show ourselves or be willing to be seen and to laugh at all the different sides of ourselves, the more we can really see someone else and connect with them on a vulnerable level, the closer they will be to us.
That's true. Yeah. And it's you're giving me some things to think about there.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So I think that's the only difference. And then you also get the similar benefits to improv in the way of, like, you get the quick response, you get the listening, and you get the kind of playing with jokes, playing with words, playing with the body, playing with movement, in being in the moment, feeding curiosity. But I think the thing that clown really lends itself to is the power of vulnerability.
Okay. It's very great what you've said there, because it reminds me of a lot of things, why people go to Tony Robbins concerts, or like why you talk about like visualization, law of attraction, and all these mindset based things. And I did an interview with a life coach on this, and I will probably send you a link, and I would like to see how you'd think like bits of that combined with clown, because what you said there is exactly the same thing as a lot of things in life coaches say you get, but in a completely different field, completely different thing.
Totally. That's the thing. It's like there's a lot of different ways of getting to the same place, there's a lot of different directions to get to the same end. But yeah, there is I think the beauty of clown is that it's like you can get these incredible life-changing, life-affirming, transformational moments, you know. And then, yeah, and then at the same time, you can get, yeah, just the, I've lost where I'm going here with the, with this phrase. Yeah, that's hilarious. It never happens to me.
I'm keeping this in, by the way.
No, you can't keep this in. My face is bright red at this moment in time. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to sync back. But yeah, you've got the embodiment, the visceral experience of what life coaches can tell you intellectual, conceptual ideas of where we're going, of what we're going for, give you kind of heady, processes or mind maps. Like, I'm a life coach. I do lots of this kind of stuff. But the clown drops us into the body, into the visceral experience of what it is to be in connection, what it is to be up there with nothing, what it is to go into our anxiety and our panic and find laughter and joy in those places. And to connect with an audience and to be vulnerable, but not think about it, just be with it and reap the rewards of what that is.
I'm really intrigued because I did a thing on tantra as well, and it's not the American Pie thing, like where it's. I thought it was going to be that, but it's not. And he effectively says that change sort of goes on like 12 different chakras that you have, and that's why he says that occasionally with life coaches, that's why it doesn't work. But yeah, I'll send you them, and I'll be interested to hear what you say on those things.
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. 12 different chakras of change.
Yeah, like he also sent me a book as well. But yeah, it's one thing that I find very interesting about the podcast is that I'm speaking to a lot of people in different fields. So I'm speaking like professional podcasters, speaking to professional businessmen in different fields, professional comedians, comedy promoters. I even spoke to Andre Sinau, who runs Night Fight, which is basically, like MMA and UFC, but it's all in sort of medieval warfare type MMA thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
cool.
There's certain themes in all these things that run across through people that have done their own thing rather than work for someone else and chased after their dream.
Right. It's the self-made, created business or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of mindsets that are similar, which go across different fields, I feel.
What mindsets?
So a lot of with everyone that I've interviewed, one of the main things is, of course, freedom, and like the not necessarily thinking about the big thing of getting money, being famous, but it's all about sort of doing what you truly want rather than what you think you want, and seeing, like, being honest with yourself. And as you said before about with clowning, it's not suited for everyone. I spoke to Delaney Fisher, who was a former comedian, and she also wanted to be an actor at some point. So what she did, she spoke to a professional actor to see what the day-to-day life was going to be like, and honest with herself whether it will be for her. And so, like, if someone wants to do clowning, maybe what they could do is interview someone who is a professional clown and tours, rather than go out and do it to see if it's worth it for them.
Yeah, in the way of like a profession, it's definitely pretty niche and quite a difficult one. But in the way of the study of clown, just like anyone would go to a life coach, I think clown could be like yoga in that way, of it's so beneficial for life, for anything. It's not just for performers. I have people in my class who are retired, people who are in, yeah, who are maybe struggling in life, or who are, yeah, just like a broad range, who are professional performers, who are dancers, poets, regular businessmen, CEOs. I've got all different types of people coming onto these courses. And I think because there's so much, because it's so much about learning about who you are, how you are. And then at the same time, you're learning all of these skills like vulnerability and sensitivity and playfulness and following with curiosity. Like there's so many things that you take away from studying clown. It's really not just for the performer. I'd say if you want to be a professional clown, you go train with somebody like Golier, right? Or
Yeah.
like Mick Barnfather or something. But if you're somebody who wants to, you're curious about clown and what it offers life, there are other teachers like myself or like Holly Stoppett in Bristol, who focuses more on the individual and the you, aside from the stage. It's about clowning for life, not just the stage.
Okay. And
yeah,
one of the things that I find interesting about you is that you do clown across different things. Like it's like with Mayweather. I know you probably don't like him as a person. Well, I don't know. He's an iffy character.
who is it?
Floyd Mayweather, the boxer.
Oh yeah,
He's a bit of an iffy character, but one of the things that's made him a successful boxer is that he sees things from both sides of the argument, like being a promoter and a boxer. And that's one of the things that's made him successful. And so like with you and clowning, they say that because you teach it, it also helps you maybe understand it better. And because you teach it as well as perform it, that I'm guessing that must help with the shows and like help with your working with different groups of people.
Definitely. Yeah. Sometimes for me, it's easier to teach it than it is to perform it, because I can see, there's something about seeing someone and the potential of them and the possibilities, and then encouraging them, giving them the particular notes that are specific to that person that will help them have a breakthrough, take them to where they want to be. Sometimes it's easier for me to see that in someone else than it is for me to embody it. But definitely, I learned there's so much like massive penny drops that happen regularly in facilitating these workshops and being blown away by what's possible. People coming into the course who on one day tell me that they can't speak in a group or with more than 2 people. And a few days later, everyone's, they've got a 20-minute solo and everyone's pissing themselves with laughter. And and there's these big moments of penny drops of just like, wow, okay, when somebody unleashes themselves in full connection with their audience and are following the game. And then obviously then I have those moments in my shows and I'm like, yes, this is exactly, and I feel like they feed each other. I learn something from performing and then I bring that into my teaching, and then I teach something and then I see something happen that I didn't know was possible. And I go, okay, I want some of that I'm going to harness some of that into my performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've had clown has given you opportunity to travel and do all these different shows. And I mean, you also set up now like a worldwide sort of cabaret comedy clown franchise.
Yeah, the Lost Cabaret. The only clown cabaret that, or I don't know, the only cabaret that loses money. No. The only franchise that loses money. I'm just kidding. I don't think we lose money. We don't lose money, but we don't make much. We've turned into this community collective. I started the Lost Cabaret in 2012, and it was really, I found it difficult being in London, there being so many stand-up nights, and to do clown after a stand-up, it doesn't give you a real sense of whether your act works or not, because maybe the audience just want a break from this like heady literal jokes, in which case no matter, you could go up there and just like drink a glass of Coca-Cola in front of everyone, they give you a standing ovation, or they're really into the funny jokes, and you go onto the stage and you do something and they hate you, and it doesn't matter what it was you do, it's a different audience that would go to your show if you were at Edinburgh. So in 2012, when I first came here, there wasn't much in the way of just like a clown night where all we're doing is exploring alternative comedy. So I started Lost Cabaret, which was a weekly comedy night where anyone was welcome except for stand-ups. Or you could come if you were stand-up, if you were going to be in a potato costume, or, you know, like do something a little bit unusual, because there's so many stand-up nights in London, but at this time there were no clown nights, no alternative nights.
Sorry about that.
Nights.
I'm very sorry about that.
That's okay. Now there's loads, so it's great. But yeah, we were definitely, I don't know if one of the first, but we were definitely one of the first like long-term, regular, every week, reliable clown comedy nights. And anyway, the ethos of Lost Cabaret is that you can get up there, be an idiot, and you can flop and you can come back. And it doesn't matter. Like, you can have a shit gig, learn from it, and come back next week and try again. And what this meant was that, like, for a lot of Gaulier students, they leave Gaulier and they're like, where do I go? You know, and they had this safe stage to try anything on, where they knew that the performers were just gonna support them, even if it didn't work, and go get up again next week. It doesn't matter. You got to just keep trying until you find things that work, and then build on those. And after time, like, we had a lot of very successful comedians come through. Like, we had Spencer Jones and Milwan Rizwan, and Phil Burgers came through, and people developed like their entire Edinburgh Fringe shows from coming to do gigs at Lost Cabaret every Friday. And yeah, and then over time, the community started recognizing what an asset this was for our community in London, like our alternative comedy community. So one of the kind of main members of Lost Cabaret, Sharni Nugar, she moved back to Australia. She's an Australian clown. And she was like, we're bringing Lost Cabaret to Australia. So she went over there and set up a Lost Cabaret in Melbourne, and then one in Sydney. And then those became collectives that continued to create Lost Cabaret. And then someone from there moved to Paris and then started a Lost Cabaret in Paris. So now we are in 4 cities around the world. Hilariously so. Just a bunch of idiots willing to get up every week to develop and create material and support one another.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing. So I do like both art forms, like stand-up and sort of clowning. I like them both, but I think I'm much better at the clowning side of things. Like, one of the reasons why I did Gole is because I'll do material on stage, it wouldn't work, but then I'll start talking to the audience, and then I'll get more laughs over the bits where I'm just talking in the audience and just pissing about with them than the actual material. And then so I thought I'll come to Edinburgh. Come to Gole. And also, one of the funny things was I was doing an hour show, and I was doing all these other things. None of it really went well. And then I started doing magic tricks. And I did this one magic trick where I was doing the cups and the balls. And one thing that happened was one of the balls was underneath one of the tables. And the thing is, I didn't know about it, but they knew about it before I did.
Yeah.
when I did the trick, I was like, oh, hold on, what happened? They knew what was going on before I did. And so they laughed like mad when I failed it, and I didn't know what was going on. And then I figured it out later. And then for the rest of the gig, they just kept on laughing at that. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
and that ended up being my best show, The Fringe.
It's great. It's great when the like moments of magic or the moments of like the unexpected become, they're often my favorite part of the show, of any show. You know, when all the lights go wrong, the sound goes off, because it's not what the comedian's doing, it's how they're dealing with it. And that will tell you everything about a comedian, is their willingness to play in that space, that vulnerability, to, you know, how they maneuver around the flop and with the flop is like, that's a real art form in itself. You know, how to deal with the heckler, it's an art form. It's like, there's so much in like, how do we deal with this, you know? How do we deal with a walkout? How do we deal with, there's so much potential in all of these moments that could be quite risky or quite vulnerable or scary, that can become people's favorite moments of the show.
But that's one thing I find. I think like when you, those sort of moments, there's not really much that can beat them.
Yeah. Well, because you can't write, you know, so often people are like, oh, that's funnier than if it, you know, that's funnier than a movie, or you can't write comedy better than that. And these are the moments I think that we're all looking for, because they're moments of just pure life in action. There's no idea at hand. It's just like us living and catching kind of magic or something. Yeah, it's like the world of the impossible. We start to play with like, wow, what is even possible? Yeah, there's so much in that.
And one of the things I find interesting with clowning and like with Edinburgh shows, it's like with Edinburgh shows for a comedian, it's just jokes, jokes, jokes. But with the clown, I found I didn't do the clown module or the other aspects like character stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I want to see is how do clowns develop material? Like how does that work? Like,
I don't know, lots of different ways. Some people work with, you know, directors or comedy writers or clown writers. Some people develop, so like, you know, some people like Spencer Jones or Mawan Rizwan or Phil Berger's, a lot of like the alternative kind of clown comedians on the circuit. They trial stuff out in front of live audiences. You think an idea, it's similar to stand-up. You think up an idea or something that you feel is ridiculous or stupid or funny, and then you go try it out at a comedy night, and you refine it, you build on it, you add to it, and then you create, you know, by and by, you start to create a whole hour-long show. If you don't have a live audience, I mean, with Dan Lees, who directed my show, I would write things and then try them out in front of him. He'd say like a yay or nay. If it was a yay, I would take it to a comedy night, try it in front of a live audience. I would know immediately this is something to keep, or it's like, no, it's time to let's lose this bit. And then I go back to the drawing board. We keep refining and working on it, and until the show is just so packed with like one thing that works after the next, until the whole show works.
oh, okay. Because the thing that I found interesting about clowning is there'll be bits, sometimes I'll do a bit and it'll fail, and like a random bit, I'll do something on stage, and then I try and recreate that manually, and it's just nowhere near the same thing.
Yeah. Recreating is also an art form, I think, in itself. To do a show well 3 times is one thing, but to do a show well 70 times is like a whole other thing, you know. Yeah, how do you stay fresh in the moment? How do you stay with, even though you've done a show 68 times, how do you convince your audience that that's the first time ever, and that you're in the purest place of you know, of play, of curiosity, that you're open to the possibilities. You might have felt that you've experienced everything, but I think the thing that keeps it fresh is that your audience is different every single night. You will never have the same audience ever. So there's like, I think that's where the magic comes. Like your audience brings their collective kind of energy or collective you know, being. And then you're working off of that and playing with that. And like a Wednesday night is going to be different than a Saturday night. You know, a Monday afternoon is going to be really different in the way of energy. You just know that people are going to be in a different place in how they are and how they've experienced their day. And I think the more we can be, I think that's like the magic of the clown here is in the moment, is like the more we practice like mindfulness and being in the moment and playing with what's here now, the better we are at dealing with these, like, yeah, just playing the same show 70 times in a row.
So effectively is like with clowning, when you're testing new bits out, is just seeing what works. And then you've got to, rather than straight stand up, having everything word for word to create the creativity or the moment, you have to, you leave a bit of openness, but you have like an overall idea of what you want to achieve. And then you be in the room.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, I mean, everyone's going to work on a clown show in a different way. But for me, I think it's important to create the skeleton. And then what happens in that?
A minute, look, Dad.
That's all right. Is to create the skeleton of the piece. So you want to create like the skeleton, but you say with a clown show, it's safest to write a show that's on, you know, on paper, going to be like 45 minutes long. But then in front of, to leave about 10 minutes of potential anything's possible space for an audience. Because there are some moments where like something happens in the audience and that's like 10 minutes of my time. I need to follow that because this is like the thing that's gonna, like this is the thing that's catching the audience. This is putting them in the palm of my hand. Now and once you have the audience in the palm of your hand, they're with you for the whole show. It's hard to lose them. So you want to get them in the palm of your hand, to do anything to bring them so close to you that they're with you every second of the way, and then keep them there, you know? And so I think, yeah, we want to be really good at being in the present moment and playing with anything, playing with our audience of the day. And sometimes, yeah, we do have like a shit, like not a shit audience. You never say a shit audience, but sometimes it's hard, just like in life. Sometimes, you know, you're with someone you have a complicity with, someone that there's like some kind of synergy with. You meet somebody and you're like, yeah, this is like, this conversation is easy and it's playful and there's so much in it. And sometimes you meet people where it's like, oh, this is like really hard. You know, this is like brings up all the difficult parts of life. And I think it's the same with audiences. Sometimes you're going to face those audiences that, you know, have all come from shows that they hated. You know, or some people are going to come with no expectation. Sometimes there's going to be an audience with a ton of expectation. And each audience is so different. And it's like, yeah, how much can we be with them or put space in the show to really meet them and connect with them and see what does this audience need or want, and how can I be in best of service to them without leaving my show behind, you know, but with like carrying my show.
That's the challenge, eh?
Yeah, that's the challenge. I mean, there's so much challenge. I think clown is a lifelong obsession, practice, you know, discipline. Like improv, like stand up. You know, you don't just do it for a month and you're brilliant. It takes a lot of time to hone and practice.
Okay. And how did you go about sort of touring with the shows? Like,
What do you mean?
how,
How did I set up the tours?
like how, so, so you said, okay, so you give me sort of an overview of how the shows work, but how does the process of, because I know a few comedians who are building a base just by touring their stand-up shows. They're not go an agent or anything. They just go to pubs and they build a relationship. They try and advertise it there. How does sort of building a tour for a clown show differ to doing a stand-up show?
I don't know. I've never done a stand-up show. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, you get a producer, you get you get a producer, you decide where you want to go. You might get a promoter and you set up some shows. Or maybe you want to be a promoter / producer, in which case you're doing a lot of admin and you're contacting a lot of people to organize a lot of shows. I think it's pretty much the same as a stand-up, you know, except maybe in, like for me, I might approach theaters more than pubs. My shows are more appropriate to theaters than they are. It's the shows that I do are more theater shows than a pub comedy show.
Okay. And just a couple more questions. So with the stand-up comedy scene, we've got the Edinburgh Fringe, the Brighton Fringe, we've got Hastings Fringe, we've got all these different other fringes.
Yeah.
And the Leicester Comedy Festival. What are clowning festivals that people go to?
They're few and far between, but they are popping up around the place. Like Dan Lees and Henry Maynard started the London Clown Festival a bunch of years ago. I'm pretty sure there's a clown festival in Edinburgh. There's some clown festivals. Mostly clowns perform at fringe festivals. So just like everyone else, we'll do Prague, we'll do Leicester Comedy Festival, we'll do all the same festivals as stand-ups, and then we'll also maybe do some clown festivals. There's a clown festival in Toronto in Mexico. I've been to a clown festival, Mexico City. There's clown festivals in Argentina and Buenos Aires. Like there are clown festivals all around the place. But there's so many different aesthetics and style of clown, like street clown, theater clown, stand-up clown, alternative clown. It kind of depends on the place, you know?
Okay. Well, I want to just say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been very insightful. There's a lot of things I learned about clowning that I didn't think of before.
Oh, cool. Good.
And two other things I want to ask you are like, what advice would you give to your younger self? And what is the quote you like to live the rest of your life by?
The advice I give to my younger self is, to follow the pleasure, to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And the quote I live my life by is, life is too important to be taken seriously.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
That's an Oscar Wilde quote.
Beauty will save the world.
Beauty will save the world. Yes, it will. So will laughter, I think.
Yeah. So that's your quote. So laughter and beauty will save the world.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
Now, one more thing I would like to ask you, is there anything you like to plug?
Yeah, sure. Just that I've got some courses coming up in 2021. Some, like I'm always running retreats, clown retreats, 1 week long. I've also got a 6-month long course that I'll be launching again in 2021, and also some online / socially distanced clown life, clown and ritual courses in the new year. And so if you're somebody who wants to be a clown, or is curious about clown, or just wants to explore clown in the way that it relates to life, jump on board.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just send me the links as well, and like
I will. Yeah, thanks so much. Well, basically just my website, clownlife.org, or Clown Life on Facebook, or Zuma Puma on Facebook. Those are all the links. But I'll send them to you all.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for appearing on the podcast, and like,
Oh, thanks so much.
best of luck with everything. Take care, and
thanks, Marvin.
hopefully I'll see you again in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully you delete that bit where I get stuck on words.
Okay. Oh, but that's amazing. What about the flop being the golden bit?
No, it's okay. I spend a lot of time with my vulnerability. I'm okay if you really want to keep it.
No, it's cool. But, yeah, I will see you. Best of luck. Stay safe and well.
Thanks so well. Thanks so well. Thanks so much. You too. You too. Have a good night.
Okay.